Hey, good morning, church. Came out weird. Good morning, church. That's a little bit better. Hey, today is a day of thinking about somebody that impacted the United States in some pretty spectacular ways. It's arguable that his life impacted the world in some ways. And it made me, as I was thinking about the life of Martin Luther King Jr. Sorry, I'm looking off to the side. I've got this photograph of him that I'm going to share in a minute. And it's just powerful. As I was thinking about Martin Luther King Jr., I have the opportunity to be off of work today for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I struggle with holidays sometimes. It feels like, especially in America, we try and make everything a day. We're just always trying to celebrate everything, and sometimes I feel, this is just my own personal thing. Sometimes I feel like we go a little bit overboard with that. But there is no question that a day like today, where we celebrate this man, absolutely an appropriate thing to do. And so I want to talk about him a little bit. I want to ask you some questions about where we're at today, and talk about Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision a little bit, and then and just kind of ask you some questions and get the conversation going. I want to talk about leaders for a second, though, just in general, right? How do you choose a leader? And I don't know if you've ever thought about that. Like think about the people in your life who have led you. How'd you choose them? What was the thing about those people that brought you in, right? In some cases, you may have had it. I don't want to say forced, but maybe it was a little bit more of an intentional thing. Like maybe you had a leader that was your boss or a teacher, in kind of a formal work setting or a school setting, and you follow that person because that's how the whole thing is organized and set up to be handled. But maybe you found yourself following the lead of someone that you never expected to lead you. And so what is it about these people? Is it how they speak? I bet that could be part of it. Is it what they talk about? Has to be part of it, right? Has to be. Maybe it doesn't. I guess that's my question. Is can you find yourself following somebody even if you disagree with where they're leading you? That's really hard to answer, I think. You may have a boss that you disagree with, and I guess you've got to decide whether or not you're going to stay at that job and follow that boss, right? I'm certain that there are stories like that out there. And so I was thinking a lot about leaders, right? And there are definitely people, my life has been full of leaders. I think part of that is because from the beginning, I've kind of been a curious person. And so I gravitate to people that have wisdom and a bold place to go, right? And so Martin Luther King Jr. is definitely one of those people that leads me. Jesus Christ leads me. Jay-Z, believe it or not. Jay-Z's a person that leads me. He's grown into a phenomenal leader and advocate for what it looks like to be an artist and grow into your artistry. Um, and John Maxwell. John Maxwell is just one of those people who he has a proven track record of understanding what it means to be a leader. And I think to follow great leaders, when you follow great leaders, you just kind of start to take on the characteristics of a great leader. And my dream is to, in any situation where I'm invited to lead something or I have the opportunity to lead something, I don't want to do that halfway. And I think if you respect the people that you're leading, if you respect, and this could be your family, right? You could be called to be the leader of your family, and I think there's just a respect that comes with that call that you earn. It's not something that's just given to you. Um, just being a father is not going to, in and of itself, raise my kids. I'm going to have to be involved in their lives, care for the things that I'm saying to them, and the direction I'm pointing them, and have some type of idea of where we're going, because I'm going to mess up so much along the way. But if I have my face pointed the direction we're supposed to go, I believe it's all going to work out. And so far, my kids are turning out okay. So I'm not completely screwing that up, I don't think, yet. um, so when we talk about leaders, and there's no question Martin Luther King Jr. is a big impact in my life. I grew up in southern Louisiana, and just his story is such an impactful story in the neighborhoods and the families across the South. And I believe that to be true all over the nation. But, there's kind of this, I don't know how you describe that. It's like, culturally speaking, he just was so, um, just so impactful, in the way of life. So let me talk about Martin Luther King Jr. for a second. Here's some things that at first glance, I was just kind of making some notes about what I appreciate about this guy, and then I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into his role in my life. Number one, he was nonviolent, and I think that's a big deal for me. It's part of what I liked about. What intrigues me about Jesus. It's what intrigues me about most leaders, is that it is far more difficult to inspire and lead people with your mind and your ability to inspire people than force will ever do. Like force, physical force especially, but even yelling and screaming at people only works to a certain point. And it's almost like yelling and screaming will take you, this far really fast. But inspiration, love, care, concern, advocacy is certainly the slower road, isn't it? But it'll take you so much farther, because people can come to it and understand it more. If you're yelling and screaming, people, especially today, it seems like we're even more turned off by the yelling and screaming. It doesn't seem to work. And don't get me wrong, I yell and scream. I don't want to sit here and talk about me not yelling and screaming. I'm just saying those are the type of leaders that I gravitate to. And Martin Luther King Jr. was certainly one of those people. He had a passion about him, which is another thing that I love about this dude. Right? He just had this unbelievable passion. He also made his goals very clear. His vision was so clear, and I was I'll show you this picture that I keep looking at. So sometimes, side note, sometimes I get I do like impulse purchases at the cash register in the grocery store, and it's kind of quirky and weird. I don't do it often, but every now and then I'm like, I need that magazine, or I need a Snickers, and I'm not sponsored in any way by Snickers. That was stupid. I thought it was funny, um, but sometimes I just have to like grab that candy bar or the soda. I don't drink soda often, but when I do, it's an impulse buy. Um, and yesterday or the day before yesterday, I ran to the store to pick up some stuff for my wife, and I saw this magazine. It was 100 People Who Change the World by Life magazine, and they always do great stuff, and so I had to pick it up. But I noticed this picture on here, and I was like, how fitting, you know? And I caught myself having this conversation like, the world? They've got him, like, if that's a qualifier, like, these are the people that changed the world, or did they change the US? And that's not to take away from his impact. It just caught my attention. It's like, oh yeah, his work probably went way beyond anything I ever knew. Here I was kind of self-centered in what was happening in our own country. I forgot about the impact that this guy would have globally. And it's just it's so cool to me. But you know, he talks about his dream that this is a quote they have in here. My 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the contents of their character. And I mean, you can't put it more clearly than that at all. I don't think anyone could clarify that anymore. We all understand where we're trying to go when we say that sentence. And my hope is that we all agree we've still got a lot of work to do to accomplish that vision. But the other thing that I look for in leaders are there's something about stepping into something difficult that is intriguing to me. I don't know that it's necessarily a qualifier, like if it has to happen, but it's definitely something that I look at and I go, oh, all right, that seems really hard. All right, I'll get in on that and see what's going on. There's no question that leading people is difficult, but some people just do it naturally. And if you have a natural ability to lead people and you combine that with something good and beautiful and difficult, that's a good place to apply that skill set. That's an awesome thing. And probably one of the only hopes of getting that thing done is having great natural leaders apply that gift to things that bring us all closer together as a species. I think he just represented hope. Martin Luther King Jr. represented hope. And I think that we could all look at what he talked about and hear his words and hear his vision and think, that sounds pretty cool. It sounds like a good place to be, where all of our kids don't give a crap. That's not true. We should give a crap about our culture, but not have it be a divider in a negative way. It should be something that's honored, not divisive and breaking us down in a area of judgment. So those are a few things that I learned from Martin Luther King Jr. And one of the things that I love to do, I can't take credit for this. I got it from somewhere, and I think I've said this before in one of the other videos, but there's this question that I heard a long time ago about, or this analogy. Imagine yourself. It was in context um, of your a relationship with Jesus, and I was questioning it a lot because I'm like, look, I'm all on board with Jesus being like a real dude, and no question, he stood for love and hope and stepped into something difficult and demonstrated what it looked like to have a nonviolent approach to showing us that things could be different and better. The Son of God thing, I think, this is me speaking in the past and, well, possibly the present still. I still have a lot of questions about this whole thing. So, um, I'm not sure that we have this whole Son of God thing accurate. I'm not saying that we have it inaccurate either. I think, but I just can't help but wonder that sometimes we're misinterpreting what these words say. And so this mentor is trying to help me. This mentor is trying to help me understand that better. And he said, what I do is I imagine myself sitting in a meeting with Jesus. I imagine him being my boss of my life, right? The Lord, the boss. He's telling me what to do. And as much as I can remember to, as much as I can bear, I bring all my decisions to Jesus and ask him what he thinks. And I'll tell you, this analogy rocked my world. It changed everything for me because now I can sit here on a day where we honor Martin Luther King Jr. and I can have that same conversation with him. And here's where I challenge you to do that. I want you to imagine yourself sitting with Martin Luther King Jr. and wherever you're at in the world, whatever you're up to right now, I want you to imagine yourself having a conversation with this guy. A good, heartfelt conversation where you learn from him. Just study his mind. Understand where he's coming from. And I imagine myself sitting across from Martin Luther King Jr. And it's really difficult to share some of the questions I want to ask him, but I'm going to be honest with you and just share these questions. I guess the biggest summary of my questions is, how do I help? Like Martin Luther King Jr., I wonder what you would say if you walked around today. And I look at this article in here. This picture of him is so powerful. And yet, haven't we seen this picture again and again and again and again and again? This isn't some photograph that stands out in any other way other than it's Martin Luther King Jr. There are so many pictures just like this all over the place. And I'm not sure in this photo, he was being arrested for loitering at the Montgomery courthouse. And when the officers learned whom they had busted, they released him. Had nothing to do with factual serving of justice. It had everything to do with other things. And I still see these images. We still hear these stories, and I'm not sure that we've accomplished the goal. I do think we've made progress in some ways. I think our conversations are starting to become a little more educated with some people. And I'll just speak for myself, I guess, which is what I've been doing the whole time. We have so much to learn. I have so much to learn. And so Martin Luther King Jr., how do I help? How does a middle-aged white man, help. What do I do? And and there's a couple things I'd imagine him saying to me, and I might have this wrong. It's just my imagination. It's just my imagination. It's not anything more than that. But everything I know about Martin Luther King Jr., which isn't a lot, but everything I do know about him, I would imagine that he would say, be clear about your vision and what you're trying to do. And I can't say that I have much of a different dream than Martin Luther King Jr. That we all as individuals know that we contribute to this world and we're treated by the character and the gifts and talents and joy that we bring to other people, purpose that we fill in each community, that we are also each appreciated by that community for the gifts we bring to the table. That we are not all the same. And that there's some balance of conforming together as a big group of people trying to care for this place, and that we're appreciated for being the individual that we are. I'd also imagine that Martin Luther King Jr. would correct my words, change the way I'm saying things, and that he would open my mind to a new way of thinking in whatever way, because he was just that kind of guy. But I think if I specifically said, hey, what does a middle-aged white man do in this world? I think he'd say, you don't worry about being a middle-aged white man. You love people and be careful with your words. And I don't mean it. Sometimes people hear the word careful and they think it's like walk on eggshells. I don't think that's the type of careful he would mean. I think he would mean be full of care. Be full of care. And if you're full of care, you probably end up in an okay spot. I want to wrap this up with a couple of things. Actually, I want to just check a message. I sent a message to a buddy of mine who's a fellow artist. There's a buddy of mine named p-thoro, and we haven't sat for a long time together, but there was a period of time where we were sitting together a lot. And this man impacted my life in some pretty big ways, as a husband, as a father. He loves his kids, and but he's also a musician. p-thoro, if you want to go check him out, or maybe I'll put a link down here to some of his music. He has a song called Martin Luther X, and honestly, the first time I heard it, I just enjoyed the music. This morning, I listened to his words, and the words grabbed me in a few ways. And I had sent him a text before I got on here saying, "Hey, man, do I have this right? Am I hearing you correctly in your words?" And so he just replied back. He always calls me sir, which cracks me up. I started off with, "Hey, brother," and he starts with, "Good morning, sir." Whatever, Ron. So I think you have a good grip on what the record is about. How I feel is one thing, but how you feel can't be denied, so your breakdown is accurate. And here's what I hear. I'm just going to read. In his song, I hear that we're still looking at that there's pain in the division that we have in this world. Um, there's pain for the division and mistreatment of people, and distrust that we'll ever see MLK's dream fulfilled. Um, and I was asking him, are you saying that nobody can or will cause growth unless each person looks to themselves to invoke justice? And that's how he responded. Hear what you hear in the song, man. I don't know. I'm really trying to step into this thing. And so I think the next thing that I'm going to do is I'd like to read more about Martin Luther King. I just like to get to know him better. What a great teacher. And as we go into a month of really just understanding the history of all of this, I want to put my heart there and be full of care for this vision that Martin Luther King Jr. had. So that's where I'm at today. And oh, what great timing. There's actually a special running right now. It's for absolutely no cost, right? It's completely free all day today, and actually all day every day of every week of every year. Love is absolutely free. Costs nothing. But you have to act now. And so I'm going to try learning from Martin Luther King Jr. I invite you to do the same thing with me. I'll actually post whatever book I'm reading, whatever video I see, whatever documentary I watch. I'll share those things on Instagram and Facebook, MANgazine_life. And actually, I'll put those links down here too, so you can follow on social, and I'll try and continue the conversation there as well as in the comments on YouTube. And we'll just try and step into this thing of love and sharing what we're all about. Hey, please take a moment to understand why we have identified today as Martin Luther King Day, and understand where he was coming from a little bit. Just take a moment and understand the heart and mind, the soul, the spirit, the passion, the leadership of this beautiful, beautiful man. He was a great man, and we can all learn a lot from him. Please, 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 please make today a wonderful day. And remember, all it takes is and I'm sorry, and I love you, or hey man, how you doing? To be there for somebody. You don't have to spend a dime. Love you. Have a good day.